totally agree. Right, George, you are the main man, so we are going to hand over to you for your talk on maximizing your swimmers' performance with more quality training. So if you want to share your screen, I'll hand over to you.
Sure. Let me just start by saying I just feel really, it's what, we've been on this for about 2.5 hours and I'm still wide awake and very excited. It's always so good to hear ideas from other coaches. I always feel passionate. I'm passionate about the story, but when I hear all these other things from other coaches, I really get a good kick out of it. And so thanks to Matt for doing this, but thank you all for participating. This is great. What I want to talk today about is quality training, how to maximize our swimming, our performances, our swimmers' performances through quality swimming. Now, I've been doing these international schools for more than 30 years, but swimming for 20 years. And what I find, let me just see if I can share my screen now. Wait, where is it here? Just a sec. Okay, so what I noticed too is everybody had such nice, rich slideshows and everything. Rich, yours was the best. No, I'm going to say the best one because I could tell where you were and where you were going. Mine is on Word. So it shows you how old I am. But anyway, this is the best I could do. So it just goes without saying that our students today are following a very different schedule than in the past 20 or 30 years. I know when I swam back in the 70s and 80s, we were training 12 practices a week, 20,000 meters a day, whatever. Obviously, those things have changed. But not just the training, but the schedule of the kids and the heavy load that the kids have this year. We're talking about IB, we're talking about AP exams, British system, GCSE. The load that the kids have is totally different than what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, in my opinion. Another thing that is being pushed a lot, and especially in Asia, I find, is that parents want their kids to be a lot more well-rounded, picking up a musical instrument, practicing piano, practicing choir, things that in my generation we just didn't do. But now you see that happening. And I also find that these are required for universities. Correct? That they don't want just you to be a good swimmer, that they want you to have another long kind of a repertoire so you can get into the good schools. So having said that, and then on top of that, many schools have a strict 3 to 4 practices per week for high school students. If you don't have a club, you're not training in a club and the kids are in varsity team or whatever, then they can only train 4 times a week. So that makes it also very difficult. So with the pressures that all the swimmers are carrying, how can we maximize their performances, their training performances, so they can receive the best training in the little time that they have? I myself offer, I heard Taylor offers 12, no, Nick Wilson offers 12 practices a week. I only offer 6, and the kids can choose 2 or 3. And so they have limited time, you know. So let's talk about that. And please, guys, I want this to be open. If you have something to share, please just go right on in and give me your thoughts and your opinions. So these are all things that I've been doing with the kids, but also I did a little bit of research to find out. And it said this thing about sprint training, endurance training, is to improve the ability to maintain sprint velocity for as long as possible. So this training runs about 7 to 15 seconds at 100%. Most of the things I'm going to talk today about are training the kids at 95 to 100%. So they reach lactic acid and they are exhausted by the end of the set, you know. This one that I've been doing a little bit is getting a recovery of 1 to 2 minutes, and for every second spent on maximal sprinting. The higher the performance standard, the longer the recovery periods. So these are all articles that I found out, and then that you can look at there in my on my sheet here. When you do any kind of dry land training. I find plyometric training is something that's, very good for sprinters and for getting maximum speed. Another thing that's making the rounds, well, I think it's for the past 8 years, is this USRPT. USRPT means ultra short race pace training. I have my doubts about this because I have looked it up and I've tried it, and I find it very, very limited in the sense of once the kids don't, if they fail, then you got to stop and start all over again. So I find that sometimes disillusions the swimmer. It turns off the swimmer, and once they have to repeat it, they don't want to do that. So I find it very hard to do it with our kids or our level of our kids. And I find it too intense for middle schoolers and then our younger high schoolers. You have to have a strong background to be able to be successful in these sets. And please, again, if you have something you want to bring in, please do. One of the things I do like, and I think this can be done for middle schoolers and high schoolers, called goal sets. I picked this up many years ago from a swim conference I went to, Doc Councilman, and it is basically doing one set of 5 100s, 10 50s, and what they do is they go maximum 100% effort for each of the hundreds or the 50s that they swim. And you find, as I can go up to 8, I find that 8 very hard, but I found maybe 5 100s to be a good number. 10 50s, definitely a good one. And you find that the kids towards the end really, really are exhausted. Maybe some of them even throw up, unfortunately. So, for example, you could do 10 50s on 130 or 2 minutes. They're all 100%, 95 to 100%. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You record each time, each 50, and then you get their average for the 50-meter swim, for the 10 50s that they did. You can repeat this once a month, you can repeat this twice a month, and the kids then have a goal because they've done this goal set for the next time they do it. So if someone does 10 50s and they average 30, then they can go back the next time and see if they can go faster than 30 seconds. And I put a question mark here, how often you can repeat this. Do you do it once a month? You do it twice a month? Another one would be 5 100s on 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So here I'm just putting an example of course, my great writing, but we had our kids do the 5 100s. Most of them did freestyle, but other ones did other strokes. And as you see, we wrote down their time for each one, and then I get an average at the time. So Noah, who's the first one here, had an average of 105 for 5 100s. Then, of course, you get to the slower ones where they would go up to 120, 130, etc. You can do any stroke. And I find this kind of set, because it's written down, the kids have an idea of what they're doing, or what they've done rather, and then what their average time is, and therefore they have something to shoot for. And that's why it's called the goal set. So they can do the freestyle or they can do any other stroke, but they must do the same stroke for the 5 100s. They shouldn't be changing stroke. One of the challenges that I find here on doing this kind of set is that the times have to be recorded. And, when you have 15, 20, 30, I mean, Rich, you said what, you have 160 kids. I guess you couldn't do it for 160 kids at the same time. But when you have your group and you time them, then you have to record the times. And sometimes recording all those times you're writing down, just not enough time until the interval is finished, and they got to start the next one. So the times have to be told to the coach by the swimmers, but sometimes the swimmers don't hear the time, right? They're like, what, who, what? And then that becomes an issue because then you can't record the time. So I'm always telling the kids, I'm going to say the time as loud as I can. Please remember it. And then when I ask you, feed it back to me. And we're going to have challenges, Then Another thing that we've done now, I'm very lucky now. I'm working in a 10-lane, 50-meter pool, so it's 50 by 25. So if we did widths, it'd still be 25 meters. So, but I've worked in other pools where it's 6 lanes, like ISB is 6 lanes, and then the pool I swam when I was a youngster. And we took out all the lane ropes and we just did widths. And the widths were, we did it in 3 interval, like 3 people. One would go, another one would come in a relay kind of thing, and they would go all out, maximum effort, 100%, no breathing in freestyle and fly, and you could do that for half an hour. And it's just go, 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 go for half an hour. And I find that really helps them with their sprint, you know? So having said all this, we are creatures of habit where we like to finish a practice, and the kids too, and say, oh, today I did 6,000 meters. Oh, today I covered 5,000 meters. But when you do a set like this, that takes a lot of time, but not enough yardage, how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel as a coach that you succeeded in today's practice? Do you feel like, they didn't do 6,000, they maybe even did 2,000, 3,000. Is that good? I find it is, because if you can do that with the kids and they get something out of it, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you got to do 6,000 meters, right? You know, we want our kids to enjoy the sport. And with all the stresses that are going on in their lives, with exams, with trying to do other sports, trying to do IB, trying to do the the extended essay. There's so many things that these kids have on their plates right now. I'd like to make that when they come to practice, it's enjoyable, it's fun, and it's something that the kids want to come. And that, who was it that was saying, one of the talks I heard, that, oh yeah, even during exam in GCSEs, they were taking GCSE and they all came. And nobody had any qualms about missing a practice because they had an exam the next day. So if though we turn around and we say, okay, today's going to be distance, I find they're not going to come, in my opinion. So anyway, we want them to enjoy the sport. We want them to build a strong and unified team that the swimmers are proud of and to be a member of. We want our swimmers to be fit, healthy, mentally and physically, and to support each other in the team. You know, and I'm finishing off with just these 12 health benefits of swimming that you can always tell your kids and your parents. Maybe Rich, you can share that with your parents, so that they have it on your weekly email. You guys, this is all I have. I just noticed that I've just talked for 16 minutes, and that's about it. So I'm going to open this up. How do I get off? How do I get out of this? Hello, Mr. Rich, how do I get out of it? Can you unblock? Yeah.
Hey, sorry, at the top of your screen, it should say something along the lines of
stop share. Yes, it did. Okay, there we go.
George,
all right, we have, you know, I didn't, I noticed that obviously it's very short, but we have a lot of people here. Maybe they can tell us a little bit. Let's have an open forum and you can tell us all about some of your training stuff that you guys do that are geared for our kids that are just so, I mean, I find it hard to give 12 practices a week and to expect the kids to come. I don't know. I find that sometimes we offer too much and the kids, and we're the ones working and not the kids. So I don't know, maybe that's a product of my coaching or a product of the team, but I know listening to Taylor and Rich that you guys have a much stronger program in the sense that the kids come to all these practices, but I don't know. I find that I don't get that. So if you guys can chime in and let me know, I'd appreciate it.
George, from me, certainly I've really enjoyed hearing you, and it's quality work is a debate that I think will never necessarily settle across all coaches. But my question for you was going to be that what sort of age do you start introducing quality work on a regular basis? But from the point of view, the comment you just made, I certainly, I think I supported the culture at Banquet Patna. I didn't create it. That was done before my time. We've certainly got to a point over the last four years where our swimmers are more bought into it and are willing to do more. But it's taken a long time, and it certainly doesn't happen in 1, 2, or 3 years. It's a 5, 6, 7, 8 year process to start getting the kids believing in what's going on at school, and certainly trying to get them out of clubs and into the school program. There's so many foundations that have got to be placed within your school to make that happen. And certainly I've seen you on poolside. If kids aren't infused by coming and working with you, then there's no hope for any of us, because you're a fun guy to be around, and you're exciting for the kids to be around. So if you're finding that a challenge at the moment, certainly it will come, and I have no doubt you'll get there with that. But from a question point of view, yeah, from what sort of age group are you beginning that process of quality work with them?
I was thinking middle school and up. You know, most of those kids that I have the times down are middle school and up, grade 6, grade 7 and up. So 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds and up. So just also because I'm the coach, and then there's assistants, and so we kind of all train together, and therefore I find this kind of set that we could all do together. So I would do it with my middle schoolers and high schoolers at the same time, do that set. And other things I was also thinking when you were talking, Rich, I was thinking, well, we need sometimes to work on a start. You know, you work on a start, and that you need half an hour sometimes to get the kid to do it. If you work half an hour on a start, you're not going to get the mileage in. There's not going to be anything in, but it's important, especially when you see, okay, now I'm not comparing our kids ever to Adam Peaty, but you see his start and his pull out. Holy moly, I'm thinking, how often has he done this? How often has he trained to do this, that he's gotten to that level, that his vertical jump is phenomenal? And Caleb Dressel, you know, of course, these are the top swimmers that we're talking about, but they have to be working on that exclusively. You know what I mean?
It's certainly something my planning sort of 6, 7 years ago, when I was starting to kind of get my head around it, always had meterage in it. And I found that I just couldn't maintain what I thought was an applicable meterage, because the minute you go into the skills, I don't want to be rushing through the time that was needed to develop the starts, to develop the turns. And certainly in a school environment, I couldn't expect them to be at the pool more than the training times very easily.
Sure.
And you certainly, I always scheduled those skills in Saturday practice, where I had a bit more freedom and flexibility, because I always find that it's a bit easier to get that extra time, and parents are slightly more willing to sit around on a Saturday than they are at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Right.
But I totally agree, and it's very easy to get drawn into, oh yeah, well, this week we want to get 45k in, and that's a lovely thought, but that takes time to get to, and there are so many skills that need potentially an hour of your session to get to really delve into it and get the best out of it. And certainly between the age of 10 and 14, those kids need that time more and more and more. And maybe with your 16 and overs, where they've had that time to develop and have got those key foundations already, you can be a little bit more strategic. But I totally agree. Meterage is a metric that I've certainly moved away from, because I just never found it accurate. I was going back and comparing, and I was never able to hit it. And I was always like, oh yeah, that session we only did 2k, but we did it for a reason.
Exactly. And I find too, like when you have a 13-year-old breaststroker who might be fast, you know, she goes under 120 or something. Why would she need to do 6,000 meters? Right? You know, so it's a question we need to ask ourselves. How can we streamline our practices so that the kids can get the maximum out of it, and not have to look at how many meters they've covered that practice. But we're all, I was a distance swimmer, so I did my 20,000 meters, but that was back in the 70s and 80s. However, I always believe that if you do have a big background and you've done, like you said, your 45K, your 50K a week, it gives confidence to the swimmer, so that when he or she gets up on the blocks, they know they're mentally fit, physically fit, therefore they're mentally fit. You've given them that. But after a while, I believe that sometimes it's just too much for the kids. And so we need to also then have a program where we do a little bit of both. Maybe today, without telling them, but today will be a distance day and cover as much as we can in yardage. And then the next day, maybe, do just sprint work or quality work. So it's something for us as coaches and think about where we go with this,
If I can add on to that, George, saying that, which I totally agree. Now, well, this is how I do it over here with our team. In the off season, we actually load up. We truly load up on the kilometers coming in. If I was to take example, the varsity season. So because they're in the year-round program, the varsity students are specially targeted, where we load up almost 5 sessions a week, and we are pretty much hitting between 15-20K leading up into the season.
Okay.
And then when we come into the season, how I break it up is pretty much Monday, Wednesday, Friday is our sprint sessions. That's because we have already got the mileage behind us. So the sprinting is normally between 1,000 and about 2,000 meters. So indirectly, they're getting that mileage as well, but in the terms of sprinting mileage. And if I was to come back again to skill development, we normally do skills between the first session of Monday, Wednesday, Friday for about 15 minutes, starts, turns, just to get them into the routine, because that's what they need when they're going into the sprint sessions. So they are already on track. And then on a Saturday is when we hit a bit more threshold work with sprint threshold in between, around between 3.5K, 4,000 meters on a Saturday. So that's one way I do it over here with our kids. And it has worked for us really, really well on the long term. And I see benefits now from the middle school, where I do the same thing, but it's a bit more on the lower end of the work. So if you're doing 3 sessions per week, the middle school would do 2 sessions per week. And then we work on the skill base, so that when they come into high school, grade 8, 9, they're really ready to go with the senior, with the varsity type training. They've already got the skill development, the mileage behind them, and they know what's in store for them.
Right.
So I would say that's one way of thinking.
I like that.
And it has worked for us. And as a team, we continue to develop, and the morning sessions are pretty much, we try and hit between 2.5K, 3K in the mornings. So because it depends on the weather as well, because during our season it rains, so we switch the sessions to the morning sessions to get maximum out of it. And then in the afternoons we hit the more serious sprint sessions, and it has paid dividends, and it has been good for us so far. So of course, that's one way of looking at it in a short term, because the high school season is not more than 4 months. So it's all cramped up. So in the year-round program, you hit the long distance, and then coming into season, they're already conditioned. So you have nothing to worry about. And then you gradually bring in the sprint work and the more threshold work in it.
That's it. Because also I'm trying to when you were saying that, I'm trying to think how. But I remember Rich's talk. How do you sell it to the kids, but how do you sell it also to the parents? Because sometimes they do that. They say, oh, how you only did I remember talking to a parent, said you can not possibly get better by doing 2,000 meters. She was just adamant, this mother. Her kids quit later, but and here I am trying to think, how am I going to explain to her that what we're doing is quality, and that you shouldn't be looking at miles or yardage or meterage or whatever. And
And I believe it's, end of the day, it's results based. So if you're producing results, that means you're doing something right at the end. And that's how swimmers see it, and that's how I believe parents look at it. And of course, it's a debatable. Some parents want the mileage, the old school, how we did it. It was all about old school, meters after meters, and then you're into your sprinting. But times have changed, and of course, there are swimmers, some who need the long yardage, the long distance, and then you get the middle and the sprinters a bit more different. So you've got to have a bit more of a, I would say, a linear line in between where you balance, their training and their studies at the same time.
Right.
It's not an easy task. It's
Yeah.
a hard task. But
I add in another challenge here. I'm a big fan, not necessarily of running my program through it yet, and I say yet because it's something that I am intrigued by. But the movement that Michael Andrew is a part of with USRPT, and he has moved obviously right to the other end of the spectrum, and all he does is quality sets.
Yes.
And he posts some fantastic videos of his 60/50s at 200 medley pace. And we're going to see at the Olympics whether he can hold a 200 IM together correctly, because I would argue 156 is pretty decent already. But coming back on a 30.6 for going 156, it's a very interesting way of working. But certainly from a school program, I'm in a different position being at a bigger school. But if I was moving now into a smaller school, I would certainly consider USRPT as the way forward for a small school program, because I really feel it's shorter sessions. You can work really closely with those swimmers. You can give feedback really easily on a regular basis and quickly, and it generally shows results if you can get the continuous progress with those students. That's just an open kind of statement there to see what anyone thinks. So Stephen, fire in.
Well, Stephen, before you ask the question, Rich, so what age would you do that then if you said you went to a smaller school, middle school and up?
Well, interestingly, if you read the paper all of the information by Brent Russell, which is slightly questionable in areas, but he's a scientist and there's some good stuff in there. But Brent claims that because it's not, it depends how many repetitions, but because it's not aggravating the lactate system, particularly because it's such short distance, it doesn't. You can start it at 7.
Wow.
And there's questions out there of, is it better? Like certainly in Britain, I was always brought up, build the engine, the speed will come later. Look at Mark Foster, he was a 1500 swimmer at 13, and he's the fastest 50-meter freestyler Britain produced until very recently. But more and more swimmers are coming from the opposite direction, and I know he's obviously still a sprinter, but Ben Proud was certainly in a very sprint-focused program in Malaysia, went over to Plymouth, and they developed it. But he had to get fitter as a 14 and 15-year-old in order to develop at Plymouth. So there's a bit of there is a changeover, and that's why I love these forums, because there's different ideas out there, and I can spot Coach X in here somewhere, who's certainly an advocate for quality work and has some great ideas from his time in the States, having been a great sprinter himself. So he's another one in here that's listening in. But Stephen, go on, fire in.
Yeah, I just want to kind of bring it back to the centered point a little bit. Like, this is International School Forum, and to some degree, we have to really understand who our audience is. And so I'm sure in the likes of this room, we have very, very small programs that probably have less than 24 swimmers, to programs like ISB or even ISKL or other big schools that may have 2,000 swimmers or 2,000 students at their school. So keeping it into context as to who our audience is important, and also the age development of our audience. So whether it's elementary school, middle school, high school, sessions have to be catered to their needs and the way their lives are. So for example, if you're going to roll out a set, there needs to be quite an objective-based reason that you're doing anything on any particular day. If you're choosing to do a fitness-based set, then the focus is on a fitness-based exercise without the particular hammer of technique while you're doing it, because that's going to fall off. And the more fatigued you get in fitness, the less your technique's going to be where you want it to be polished up. And the kids are a developmental mind. And if we understand what they're going through at the moment, easier for us on pool deck than they are in the water to perform those skills, it allows them to gain some confidence in the water, knowing that they're not being harked on by all the little gritties. If you're then doing a technique style set, bring it back to those USRPTs, because that's where the skills get combined, and you're able then to identify all those little small areas. The kids then know that, This day is going to be a shorter set, but I need to be on in the technical aspects of my swimming. And so I think those are two very big things to identify when you're becoming a swim coach. You're trying to take your swim coach into another level, is not to try to do everything all at one time. I know Richie talked, or someone talked about, maybe it was George, fitting time in for diving. Definitely, if that's the time you need to go ahead and get something in there, you don't sit there and try to burn the candle at both ends that set and get it done. So our morning sets that we have, that I've developed over here, are different than the afternoon sets, because in reality, they just rolled out of bed. You know, they're just happy to be there. We're lucky to have them there. So if I'm sitting there having to grind them through something in the morning or put some big miles on them and so forth, it may not behoove them for the rest of the day. Only towards the end of the set will I say, okay, I want this one effort to be where we're going to chalk it up today. And with the abbreviated seasons that we've had through coronavirus, we can't really rely on some of the same tricks that we've done in the past. We have to kind of be super creative and get these small wins as you get along. So while we didn't quite at some times get to our best times of 2019 here, we were basically practice after practice getting best times of the year for us. And they were slowly crouching in to where they were before, but that drove that confidence and got them back in the water. So whether we do a season plan that's 12, 16, whatever weeks that the book and the literature teaches us, I think at some point you got to kind of crumple that up, throw it out, and get super creative. And you throw in a test set like what George was talking about earlier. That's the barometer. That's all you have to do. You don't need to make it any more complex. But you do want to get things in there that are fun and creative. If you're going to work on your underwater kicks and you're sitting there doing, you know, a set where, okay, I want you to hit 3 underwater kicks on every single turn for this 100. The next 100, I want you to hit 5 on every turn. Then you're going to hit 7 on every turn. And then we're going to go back to a 3, 5, 7, depending on the age appropriateness. If they're a little bit more advanced, you're obviously getting into the 9s and 12s, because, you know, what you see on the Olympic level is they're doing 12 underwater kicks off the wall. Some of our swimmers are quality up there. But on the, you know, middle and the novice side of things, it's really trying to, you know, provide that culture where they have a good time, and that you're identifying this is technique based, this is fitness based, this is skills based. And then if you do what Conrad was saying by putting in your miles in at the beginning of the week, which is very advantageous, because they're going to fatigue as the week goes on. You then work in that little fun, low time trial, something shorter at the end of the week, and then they get a time to go do sharks and minnows or something that makes them have a good laugh.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of puts it in a dome of perspective as to why we're here, who our students are, and if you look at your program, how many are going off to the next level, you know, or does their career stop at high school? I would say a good 85%, just guessing out there, even in the top quality programs, 90%. High school is the finish line.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to make things fun through their journey.
I talked to one mom from Singapore, and she says, you can always find a university that you can train in, that there will always be one for your level. And I looked at some, and there are a lot of, especially in the States, a lot of Division III schools that kids can swim, even though they might not be at a very high level, what we think of Division I trying to get into this university, that there are other schools. And I also know, Rich, I know you're British, that some of my kids that weren't fast. I mean, the guy was maybe a 26, 27, 50 freestyler, and he was able to swim in Brighton.
Yeah, so I guess in summary, I want that pitch to be more like objective based. Know why you're walking up to the pool that morning, that afternoon, and let the kids know exactly what they're going to be doing that day, like, or what you want out of them. It's just not like kind of roll out. When I worked with one coach once and said like it was garbage training if you don't identify an objective. And I think part of that's totally true, because you would want the same if you got in the pool and the coach is trying to help you out.
And do you think that objective needs to be shared with the kids before?
Definitely not. It can be just wherever you want it, hour and 15 minutes in, wherever it is. Say, okay, we worked up to here. This is where I want to see it produced. Like, you got to be creative, and you got to keep them on edge, because you don't want them to anticipate all your tricks.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to sit with Coach Sergio Lopez about 2 years ago at the ASTA conference, and he was talking in one of his talks, and then I got to chat to him afterwards about his programming at Bowls. And as a school, it's probably the #1 swimming school in the world, but he had kind of adapted the program there, and their morning sessions were 1 hour and all underwater focused. which is understandable in a yard system, but they did no meterage. It was all about perfecting the underwater work. And it was all skill related, 3 mornings a week.
Wow.
And then they had 5 afternoons, which were where they did their meterage, but he works on a carousel of 3 different types of sessions. Quality, haven't looked at it for a while, quality, sprint, and technical. So their other kind of 5 or 6 sessions a week are on that carousel. And then all of the morning sessions are underwater focused. And they kind of roughly know when that carousel is coming along in the evening and the afternoon sessions. But in the morning, they are going there and they're wearing socks and practicing underwaters. They're pushing bricks underwater. They're having relays of doing their underwater work and focusing on, as I think, Stephen, you alluded to, they've got to get to 10 kicks because they've got to go their full 15 underwater. And that was how they were preparing. And he said, if we did 1,000 yards in the morning, that's okay, because it was quality and it was what we needed to work on to execute our races properly. And he said, my goal, and this is something that I really kind of agree with, and I think it comes into what Stephen said. My goal as a school-based swim coach is to make them want to swim at college. And our full goal and our intention is that our senior kids and the kids in our what we call national squad here, the goal is that they go to college and swim. They don't have to be at Loughborough or Bath or Texas or Cal, but they want to go and swim. And we've got to the point where our seniors do want that, and that's part of their university chats that they have now. And we're very lucky. We've got a guy that's come over from British School Manila, who's a counsellor, but also one of the most passionate swim coaches that I've ever seen. And he really supports them in finding those universities that are right for them. And that Div 3 idea that George mentioned, he's brilliant at pointing them to that one would be great for you. And actually your times are already on the cusp of what they're looking for. And then they have that goal to keep working in their senior studies towards it. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Stephen. I think it's really valid points and great things for us all as coaches to remind ourselves and looking at your own program, what you want from it, and certainly what your students want from it, because sometimes those things can be different too.
We're not as fortunate, Rich, to have a swimming knowledgeable counselor, that's for sure. My God, that sounds fantastic, because also, when we talk to these, what I find and when I swam, and then what I'm trying to do is build a team spirit, a sense of belonging that the kids, and really now you guys, they're missing it so much. They're so, I'm not going to say depression, but so sad that they're not able to do that. They miss the team, they miss their friends. And who doesn't fool around when we come to the pool and the locker rooms and inside? All that stuff makes it part. And then to say at 18, you're finished, that's it, no more of that. They miss it. So I don't, in my career, I can say I've had maybe 5 or 6 swimmers that swam in college, and I wish I had more. But then again, like I started this conversation, these kids would rather choose, Stanford, Yale, and MIT before they choose a school just to go to school to swim. Definitely their parents will not buy it, right? They will shoot for the big schools where they definitely won't be able to get into swim. And then that's it. They won't be swimming after 18 years old. And that's a shame.
Absolutely.
I love that thing. I love what you said about them messing around. I think it's quite, even as like a young coach, I think it's easy to kind of coach how you were coached. And I find myself, even though I've only been coaching a year and a bit, kind of when I started, the kids are kind of messing around, and immediately in my head, I'm like, oh, why are they messing around? Like they got too much rest. Like something's not right. Like get going. And I've kind of taught myself, and we've actually gone way down in volume and like less than 20K a week. Even with 8 sessions. And I think my thing is kind of letting them be kids, because letting them have fun, because that's what you remember about swimming. You remember kind of what I remember from my career was like messing about in the showers, having a good laugh, and then like competing, beating each other in practice. So I'm trying to put together just a space in practice where they can come and they can be competitive, but they've also got their energy to kind of have a good time. And I think that makes them better. I think you know, if they're laughing and giggling and stuff, like dopamine's going up, and dopamine, hell yeah, that's good for performance, man. And so we do a set, it's like well under 1,000K. And we're doing it like at least twice a week. And we just come, really short warm up. And then in a single lane, just so there's like, they're not really competing, they're kind of competing against themselves, but also against each other in a way. But one lane, 125, time them, boom, maximum effort. And we record their PB for that 25, and we record it, we rank it, and we publish it. So we rank it. So they have these little competitions going on. Like we have our 25s one, and then we have a 15 underwater one where we're like, you know, on the beep, stopwatch go, when your head gets to 15, boom. And then, you know, they've got little battles between them, you know.
And you only do one, Jake, just one? 125?
So we kind of suck around the whole group. There's like 12, 15 of them in the group. So we just, one person goes, boom, tell them the time. If they want a PB, I shout it down, and they all cheer, clap each other, good vibes. They swim down, try and figure out what they got to do to go another PB. Then the next person goes, we kind of keep cycling through probably every like 20 or 30 seconds. By the time it gets around to the first person, they've had about 4 minutes rest, had a bit of a chuckle, but they're ready. Like they want to go a PB on that next one. Like I've never seen them so
Motivated.
technique, motivated, having a good time, focused. Like
Exactly.
I don't have to coach.
Yeah.
I give them the time, and they know they're like really disappointed. I've never seen them care so much about something.
I know, it's amazing how much we can motivate the kids with so little, you know. And I think that says how it is as coaches. Our style and our attitude is reflected on the kids. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And they care so much about it, to the point where like that's our hardest practice, because we reach that like 105% intensity, you know. I think a lot of people call high quality sets, you know, but actually 100% on a bunch of 100s or whatever, like that's not 100% effort.
Exactly. Yeah.
Might even be at like 90 or something. But these kids, like, give them enough rest, more than they need, and they go after it. You know, they're like on 25s, they're like destroyed, like they're fried after that, but they're having a good time, so it's okay. To the point where, you know, they, on those days, I tell them the day before, and they always wear their tightest Speedos. The guys, you know.
I love it. They're ready for it, eh?
And then I'm like, I've been posting the ranking, and you know, we put like a little green square on the sheet if someone goes a PB and stuff, and I've started to put that more on Instagram, just to get it out there, because it means something. You know, people are going to see it. They're like, oh, it's not just for me to beat my mate Angbo. You know, it's like, I want everyone to see that, like, I'm the fastest girl, or I'm the fastest guy, or whatever. And from there, we've got them up to that intensity, and now that's kind of spill over into they know what that intensity is. So now we can go like a little bit longer stuff, like 75s. And for our longer stuff, we actually do like an auto regulation thing. So if it's 75s on 6 minutes or whatever, we, you know, that whatever their fastest 75 is, as soon as you drop 2% off that, like, you're done for the practice. Like, you get to just cheer people on or swim down, work on skills or whatever. And they try so hard to stay in for as many as they can, but also go a PB. Like, it's just super intense, but they're having a good time. And I think that's the key. Like, they want to come to practice, you know. They're like coming to practice that they're not supposed to, ones they're not signed up for, and they're like, oh, I had an exam today, I just want to come because I want to be with the guys. And like, they're allowed that. And I think that's one thing that is quite old fashioned, and it's even I'm having to, as a young coach, get over, is like letting them mess around. Like, it's okay, it's good.
I'm really sorry.